Hello, and welcome to another episode of the MoxStars podcast. I am one of your hosts, Evan Kunai, and I'm here with Jordan Garcia.
Yo, what up?
And Christopher Ritter.
Hey.
Today we're talking about proxies, but before we get into that, you guys can find us in pretty much everywhere on our link tree below. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter. If you're watching us on YouTube, first, thank you.
What up?
Hit like, subscribe, and ring that little bell so you can stay tuned for when our new episodes drop. Ding. Before we get into talking about proxies, we are actually doing a Ristic Update!
Ristic update. We should actually get some real sound effects for that at some point.
Thank you. Oh. Not that. Not that. I'm sorry.
Very unenthusiastic fucking vibe.
I just don't know the buttons yet.
Mystery button.
But we got some big news because we have been seeing some spoilers for Brothers War. And today we're actually going to talk about each of us is going to go through and talk about one of our favorite cards from the upcoming set. So, who wants to go first?
Chris, you had a pretty juicy one that I had not even seen yet.
Oh, okay, yeah. This is a new one that got spoiled yesterday,
Ooh.
I believe.
Right on the cusp right now.
We're talking about Hostile Negotiations.
Yeah.
1 black, 3 colorless, instant. Exile the top 3 cards of your library in a face-down pile, then exile the next top 3 cards of your library in another face-down pile. Look at the cards in each pile, then turn a pile of your choice face up. An opponent chooses one of those piles. Put that pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. You lose 3 life. To me, this card reads like 4 mana, access to 6 cards.
Yeah.
You're in black. You're making an opponent you're forcing your opponent to make a bad choice, hopefully.
With no information, really.
With no information to go off of.
That's literally your favorite thing. Making people
It is.
Yeah.
It's such a
Yep.
consistent theme of yours.
Honestly, if you can force your opponent to make any sort of choice, that's probably going to lead to a bad choice, i.e. think it's a good card.
Yes, and then once you
So-
limit options while making them make a choice.
And then, also because it's in black where you want access to card draw, black has excellent card draw. They just don't have a diversity of options. So this to me seems like a pretty great auto include if you're playing in black and you're not reaching into, say, red or blue for card advantage.
Right. Yeah, I will say, like, they do have options in black, but they're all very old and haven't really, caught up with the current power level of, other colors and stuff like that. So I think this is, a clear kind of, boosted effect of, things we've seen in the past and just significantly better.
Also, and also, too, in black, a lot of the card draw is not at instant speed.
Right.
It's at sorcery speed or staple to an enchantment, such as Necropotence, which goes off at exactly 1 point
And
during
it's a
your
very
turn.
awkward point during your
Yeah, and so Hostile Negotiations being instant is basically, your opponent's end step, you're going to pay that 4 mana, and you're going to look at 6 cards.
Yeah.
And it's great card advantage.
And it's just 3 generic in a black. Black loves to go hard on the multi-pips. And
Absolutely.
It made it easy.
Yep.
And the fact that it's instant speed, 6 more cards is kind of nutty.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, if you're in black, you're playing out of your graveyard probably, so
Right.
you're getting access to every single one of these cards, more than likely.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me,
love it.
this card looks almost like a Mario Party mini game where you have the 1v1 because you both landed on the red tile or something. It's like you're picking one other person to basically play this game, this little mini game with you, and it's great that it's instant speed because you can react to things at any given point. But it almost reminds me of all the times that I've used Chaos Warp to warp something for an advantage or work with somebody on something. I mean, it can be very political. And I think that's exactly what this card does is it plays that balance of I'm choosing my opponent to make a bad decision, but it's also can be used I'm choosing this opponent because they're going to make the best decision for me.
Right.
So I really like the card. It looks like a lot of fun. And I can't wait to actually see it be cast because I still don't know quite how it works or how good it's going to be.
I pre-ordered 6 of them.
So it's going to be good.
Yeah.
I love to see that. In my head, this kind of starts fitting in the camp of this conversation we have every now and then is this intuition concept of the OG being the intuition. But we were just talking about something.
Oh, I was saying that this I see
Ecological.
it where it only digs the top 6 cards, right? And I mean, there are cards that when it digs the top 6 cards is really good, like Winota when it looks at 6 cards is really good. But this is like something where I was like, man, I really wish I could like curate 2 stacks and then make decisions that way. But then it would just be way too powerful because
you're getting greedy. I think if you were choosing the piles, you would be looking at like a 5 or 6 CMC card, at which point it's not playable.
And I think at that point you almost win the game because like whatever pile you just choose cards that if one pile goes to the grave and one pile goes to your hand, I win either way.
Yeah, it is less of a tutor effect, more of a card advantage engine, but I think it's a really good card advantage engine. All right, word. Let's move on to the next one. Evan, this one's yours, and it's so spicy.
This one was just spoiled. Well, it was spoiled last night, and I went off. I've been waiting.
It was in the back seat, then he just started like popping off.
I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting this for a long time because I was just screaming from the mountaintops. I'm like, Zakama is 1 enchantment away from being tier 1 or
tier 1.
Tier 1. It'll be tier 1.
That is.
I'll make it.
I mean, 1
0.
away from being tier 1 is
tier 4 maybe. But my card is Meticulous Excavation. It is a 1 white mana enchantment that says pay 2 and a white. Return target permanent you control to its owner's hand. If it has unearth, instead exile it, then return that card to its owner's hand. Activate only during your turn. So there is like that drawback where you can't activate it at during anybody's turn, but there is a significant I guess the wording is very significant here because it says activate only during your turn. It doesn't say activate only as a sorcery, which we've seen plastered on a lot of cards, and it has limited them.
Yeah,
and this is like
capped.
Yeah, so you get to do some really cool things. My pod back home in Wisconsin had said it does really cool things with Evoke. So that was another way to like this card just.
That's pretty spicy.
Yeah. So like whatever evoke effects you can possibly think of, this card can like potentially get you to recycle them or like at the lowest possible, I guess it is a lot of mana to like bounce a Muldrifter back to your hand, but it does like recycle that effect for you.
I'm thinking the new evoke cards, like if you can like bounce or like cast a Solitude by exiling a white card and then bounce it back in response to the sack trigger, and then you have another instant speed exile at any given moment. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like this card to me just screams combo potential because
for sure. Dockside, easy, obvious. It's a Teamer Sabertooth on a 1-drop white enchantment. It's 1 mana more, but that's it.
Yep, and if you guys had listened to the Zakama deck workshop episode we did, I talk about like that little Enchantress like package that I have built into there for card draw, for like stacks, for advantage, for all that stuff. And so this like immediately I'm just like looking like I could take any enchantment out for this.
Yeah.
Like it's that good.
Like Prox, Destiny Spinner.
Yeah, Sanctum Weaver.
This whole package is just like, 1-drop enchantments that also win you the game seem to be pretty goddamn good.
Yeah, and I was also just saying like this card goes really well with like if this is on the battlefield and I cast an Ecological Appreciation, I now feign a lot more combo lines than I possibly had before because I can go grab Dockside, I can go grab Devoted Druid, even though it doesn't combo with this, but it just like you're creating an intuition stack where you can just feign to your opponent like, what combo do I have? Mm-hmm. Like, what combo are you gonna try and stop happen right now? So
that deck relies heavily on your opponent putting their finger in at the right point.
Yes.
Right. So that's a huge advantage for you.
Yeah, and pretty much if it's during his turn, like any removal spell that points at it, like you can still bounce it to your hand as protection too. So it has that aspect to it.
Yep, and it just naturally goes infinite with Zakama. So if you are able to generate 12 mana, you can infinitely cast Zakama. So you have an infinite storm count right there. And if you're able to generate 13 at any given point, you now have infinite mana. So like I know that seems like a big number, but Zakama gets there pretty quick when you're abusing like Gaia's Cradle and Serra Sanctum, all those things. So I really like this card. I think it has a ceiling even higher than when I speak of it right now. Mm-hmm. Peregrine Drake, also does the same thing. It's like untap 5 lands, like boom.
Wild that this is at uncommon.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
So last night, when we were I was in the back seat of the car and I was just like, Jordan, you're not going to believe this. Like,
yeah, I thought this was a mythic for sure.
Yeah, look at this. This is insane.
This is like, I mean, to me, this is like highlight of the set. This is #1 card in this
Target
set right now.
permanent.
Yeah.
Target
Also, talk
permanent.
about bouncing itself. Like you were talking about having the enchantment package. If you have all these enchantresses where you're casting a enchantment, drawing a card, we're like, well, shit. Now I can just bounce it for 3 mana, recast it for 1 mana. That's just 1 card.
Yeah,
2 cards if you have 2.
I've been on some like competitive forums, and like every time I share my deck list, and they're like, "You should take Argothian Enchantress out. There aren't enough enchantments for you to like." And then I play a game and I draw like 5 cards off of it. Like this is an outlet for that. So if I'm able to generate infinite mana, because this screams like, "Allow me to generate infinite mana," and Argothian Enchantress is on the battlefield, it now says draw your entire library.
Yeah.
So-
Not only does it give you another way with Dockside to generate infinite mana, which your deck already does a bunch, it
Yeah.
also on top of that is your outlet with infinite mana.
There's
More than
there's
that.
just so many cards in the deck, because once you like reach into higher powers, you start playing a lot more tutors. Like a lot of your instants and sorceries are just tutors, and so now I actually have purpose in searching for Argothian Enchantress if I have this in hand or on the battlefield.
Yeah. This is always going to be threatening, even if you just cast this turn 1. Like,
Yep.
Just be like, all right, pass.
Yep.
Like,
Turn
always gonna be
2.
worried about it.
Turn 2 could be Dockside.
Yeah.
Turn 2 could be the game.
Yeah,
So
literally,
like
literally.
that's how threatening this card
Yeah.
is.
No, that's really good at the 1 mana slot.
Unbelievable.
All right, I am last up, and I will say that I do think Meticulous Excavation is the best one, but I do want to talk about this card because I think it's pretty dang cool. It is called these all just came out. Symmetry Matrix. It is a 4-drop enchantment. If I knew how to spell symmetry, this would go way faster.
I think it's an artifact, by the way.
It's an artifact. Oh, you're right. It is an artifact. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I know this does better than I can just type, apparently. So if a creature entering the battlefield, not cast, which is really good, and we'll come back to that, enters the battlefield, and it has the same power as it does toughness, you're allowed to pay 1 generic mana and draw a card. And although all these cards recently have had restrictions on them, there's no restriction on it. There's no once per turn. There's not only during your turn. There's like there's nothing. And it's in a colorless, and it's only 1 mana. It is, I think, the best colorless draw engine that we have now, because we've always seen that if you're getting a colorless effect that you see in other colors, it usually costs more in the colorless effect.
There's so many tokens that just like are generated by,
Anything.
for whatever,
For any reason whatsoever.
And they're all 1/1s usually.
1/1s, 2/2s, it's the easiest thing in Magic to make.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to turn your Bitter Blossom into a card draw engine,
Pretty dang
boom,
easy.
this
right
seems
there.
pretty
Yeah.
good.
Essentially, any token creator where they are same base power and toughness that doesn't require you to like invest the mana in every time, like exactly like that. Whatever the black market connections, making that. No, it's a 3/2, isn't it? That's a bad example.
Yeah, it is a 3/2.
All right, terrible example. But I used to play a Layla where every time you play an artifact or enchantment, boom, you get a fairy. Like this goes amazing in that because now it's just play anything
Well,
plus 1 mana and you get a.
I hate to break your heart on that. Because if a Layla's on the battlefield, is a state-based static thing. It's
you're
gonna be a
right.
2/1 when it enters.
Wow, 2 dog shit back-to-back examples for how this card doesn't work.
Are you sure you got the text of the card right? Like,
I don't think so, and I cede my time. Thank you. Try Symmetry Matrix.
Symmetry Matrix seems like a good card, but there are like definitely some enablers out there that say when you draw a card, create
That's so funny.
a token.
Tendershoot Dryad. Can we talk about Tendershoot Dryad?
Yeah, every upkeep that comes
Boom.
comes in. Yeah,
Get
it
a
doesn't
Seaboard
matter
Muse
if
on
you've
there,
ascended
you
or
just-
not because it's +2/+2.
Who gives a shit? It's perfect. Don't have us ascend.
Don't play it on a Layla. It's not good. It's like people wanting to play
Okay.
a Guardian Project in Volo. It just doesn't work. the way you
Right.
think it
Yeah,
does.
exactly right. Okay, so I do. All right, tell me if this doesn't work because I had one more thing written down.
it's going to be another sick knot,
It's
though.
it's not gonna work, right?
I'm
So-
dead, dude. I'm just dying.
I'm thinking like a blink deck, right? Like Brago or something
Yeah.
like that. If you can just blink any creature that has the same power toughness, I don't know if Brago is. Don't quote me.
He does not.
Great start. Any other creature you have, you can then just blink it, and then you're already with like blinking, so you're getting the mana back. So you essentially get an infinite loop out of this.
Yeah, you're already blinking rocks as it is.
You're already
They
blinking
come-
rocks. You blink one creature in the mix. Boom. Now you're tapping that rock, drawing your whole deck.
Sure.
Pretty easy. Ended up being a combo piece on top of just honestly a fantastic draw engine. I think it's going to be really good.
Yeah, there have been so many cards that have come out in like the last
Magda?
2 years that I've
Magda, hello. I mean dwarves. I'm not thinking about Magda itself, but
Oh, okay.
because Magda, you're casting all these 2/2 dwarves.
maybe.
And then I don't know.
Good.
And she tutors for the artifacts and shit.
Yeah, no, there's just so
I don't
many
know.
cards that have come out recently, like in the last 2 years, that I have looked at and been like, this seems really good. I thought like Moonsilver Key was going to be amazing because I read the effect and I was like,
It is.
holy cow, it is amazing.
It's just not.
hard to
It's not
know-
as good as it's going to be, though.
Right. It's just you just don't know where cards like this are going to land in terms of like popularity or in terms of like playability and like what decks are going to be popular because we're just seeing like this crazy trend of so many cards coming out that it just people move from deck to deck to deck to deck to deck. So it's like, is this a card that you move from deck to deck to deck
I
because
don't think
it
it's
is
an auto.
consistently enough drawing you enough cards?
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's a specific build around it. It's not a universal card for sure.
Yeah, like I was thinking, like, man, Hepatra would be really good with this because then I can, snakes entering the battlefield, and then I can just pay one and draw a card. But I've also like tuned that deck up to just be like tutors and stuff to get the combos that I need. So
Yeah, I think there's a small threshold for like decks that go absolutely off the wall with it, and I think like the Blink deck is it. But like I think there's a wide variety in more of like maybe the mid or power, where it's just a fantastic draw engine. And you'll just like look at your cards and be like, wow, almost every single one of my creatures has the same power toughness.
You could even do Coma. Coma would be a great.
It'd be
If you're playing Coma,
freaking
like, this
insane.
is actually pretty great.
Boom. If you already have like Seedborn Muse effects in your deck, and now all of a sudden you're just untapping and going off,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
good.
I'm convinced it could be a great card.
Word. All right, guys. Well, we're moving into our main topic, and it is a really good one. It's been coming up, I think, more and more, and I think currently with Magic 30 and all the spiciness going on, I think it's a great time to talk about it. We're talking about proxies today. I know it's sometimes a vilified topic, but not in our play group. We are actually kind of huge fans of proxies. We've been doing it more and more recently. Ritter kind of started the train on like buying like nicer made proxies, and that kind of was really cool. He bought one of the dual lands, right?
A couple of the dual lands.
That ancient tomb.
I don't know, stuff
Yeah.
that's over $100. I'm not gonna spend real money on cardboard.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get some proxies.
that's totally fair.
Well, there's a certain point now that like we've now play a game made by a company who's willing to sell like pieces of cardboard that are not even tournament legal for way more than
Right, like literally. So
at the FedEx store.
if anybody has not been paying attention to this or whatever, it's the whole Magic 30 thing with these the anniversary, these proxy packs that are $1,000 for 4 packs of revised or whatever reprint, but it is all proxies. You're getting charged for proxies.
I think that Wizards and Hasbro recently have really made it apparent that they think of their audience as gullible children and idiot adults.
Yes.
So you don't need to spend the money with them if you don't have to.
I feel like a lot of us recently are feeling less and less encouraged to be spending our money with Wizards.
Yeah, I almost feel like, with the Star Wars collectible card game that was made by Decipher and then discontinued in the early 2000s, like now there's just a player group that designs their own sets.
Mm-hmm.
And I, down the line, would not necessarily be opposed to that. Like,
Wow,
with the
actually,
right group of
conceptually-
people just being like, fuck Wizards, we're done spending money with them. Let's just design your own stuff. You can print this at home. You get a whole new set every 6 months.
Man,
and
that's
it's
awesome.
the appropriate power level, made by people playing the game, made to encourage you to have fun. and
People
do
actually
things.
wanting to
Yeah.
experience the game properly and not
And-
just get a buck.
Yeah, the proper pacing for experiencing the game. I think we're just like seeing set after set. A lot of like it's a very rapid pace.
It's
Oh
pretty
my
much
God.
once a month you get new content
Yeah.
that you then might shift the meta. Like,
seriously,
to a
yeah.
large result and cause you to spend more money.
Of course.
You
I
know?
mean, it is directly profitable for them to create more powerful cards that you now have to buy to keep up with the game. Like,
Yeah, I mean, Modern Horizons 1 and 2 were effectively Wizards saying, if you play in the modern format, you need to now lay out, I don't know, a couple $1,000s on, hopefully you're not opening packs like a fucking moron, but, laying out a couple $1,000s on the secondary market just to either update a deck that had been tier 1 or tier 2 for years in the format, or now a lot of the previously viable decks in Modern are just wiped out by the new printings in Modern Horizon 1 and 2, and so there's completely new decks, and then you just have to forget about all those investments you made over the years and just start over and once again spend a few $1,000s on the secondary market to play this format that had previously been very stable.
Yeah, there was. I mean, just to like tell the story of a game that had to restructure itself after it went through these same like sequences of events is like Yu-Gi-Oh. So like I played Yu-Gi-Oh competitively before I picked up Magic ever. And the thing was is that new sets would come out every few months and everyone was excited for it because you got the, you know, that whole like spoiler season and everything like that. And it's just like that same addiction, that same like drive, that same energy. But they would print these like crazy powerful cards that just warped the format. It's like if you weren't playing that, like whatever deck you've been working on for the last 3 months is no longer viable. And then if you wanted to buy them on the secondary market, they were like 100 plus. So you'd have to spend like as a teenager or as a, you know, a young adult, you're spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars just to stay and remain viable in a competitive format because there wasn't a casual table to sit at.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. From a business perspective, you need these addicts to keep spending money, but I feel like what Wizards is doing right now, it's 100% fentanyl. Like you're killing off your buyers.
Literally,
like,
something.
Yeah, that's exactly what Yu-Gi-Oh did. They killed off people just lost interest because after the 3 months of like that deck being viable and people were like, yeah, this is great. Like, wow, I finally got the pieces. I traded up for it or whatever. And then a ban list would come out and it would say, hey, man, you know that deck you just traded for? It's now banned. Or we're going to nerf it. So it's no longer at the top of the food chain. So, and then the next set we're going to release, it's going to have the top of the food chain cards in it. So get ready to shell out for a little bit more. And it just essentially killed the game.
Yeah, and even the financial aspect aside, like it just feels bad to care so much about this game and devote so much of your time to this game and be treated like absolute shit.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
Yeah, and Yu-Gi-Oh had to create all these different zones and stuff, which is, hey, does that sound familiar? We're seeing all these like new zones and stuff pop up within the game, like new outside interactions and game pieces or whatever. But like they had to create all these new zones, and then all the players were like, how am I supposed to ever keep up with this mentally? And so they destabilized the game for profits, and then they had to restabilize it down the line, banning a ton of stuff, creating multiple formats so they could recompartmentalize the game so it would actually thrive and be competitive again. And that's ultimately where it's at now, is like there is a competitive scene. There's also like different formats. So you can play old Yu-Gi-Oh! The way that, you know, you may have remembered and loved it. Yeah.
When the show came out.
And so like they're like modern standard, you know, sort of stuff. Maybe not like exactly like that, but they did like compartmentalize it so that players could return to the game. But and I just hate that we don't get to that point here.
Well, the problem too is also that EDH is an eternal format. So anything that they're printing, like you can't wall off the garden.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's exactly it. And oh man,
yeah, it's almost the opposite issue. Like not necessarily in casual or mid-power stuff, but if you're trying to play competitively in EDH, like now you're dealing with the kind of backside of that of, all right, well, there's a lot of reserve list cards that are pretty much meta and auto includes in most decks. So like you're shelling out again tons of money for it.
Yeah, and just kind of like refocus us back on proxies. It's like even if you're playing casually, it is a ton of money. And so what we've been doing and what Jordan's been doing mostly is he's been going off and like printing all these decks and then just bringing a ton of decks that are good or like mid-power or whatever to the table, and then we just share them and we play them, and like so you get something fresh. You know, it's like at least tuned in some way, and like
I'd say they're all high power, but not anywhere close to like CEDH.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, we want to play a. I mean, the benefit of proxies is that we want to play a skill-based game, not a wallet or luck-based game.
Right.
Yes.
And there's just some cards like Rhystic Study is one of the best draw engines. Like, and if you have 3 blue decks, like you don't want to spend $90 to make sure they all have Rhystic Studies. Like that's just absurd.
That last sentence you said, I just want to listen to that on repeat for like the next 2 hours.
Well, we recorded it. You can.
Yeah.
You can loop it.
Do you guys want to hear it?
If I could loop it right now, I just don't have the technology. I have the technology. I don't have the skill.
You don't know how to operate the soundboard to do that, but we can technically do it.
Guys, it would be so cool. Just imagine it right now.
Yeah, I guess like a lot of people when it comes to proxies, there's a little bit of like faux pas to it. Like there's a little bit of taboo to the whole thing because you play these games with your friends and you all buy the cards and you might have drawn a draft or whatever, and then someone comes to the table with a proxy, a card that they do not actually own, and everyone at the table feels a little bit slighted by that fact. And I think that's been like a big part of the argument against proxies is that you didn't earn that card, or like
I had to
you didn't pull
invest.
that
You
card.
have to invest,
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
such a toxic, terrible perspective.
Crabs in a bucket, man.
It just means you are never going to have people to play with, especially if you want to play competitively. That is such a huge investment to not only ask that this person is such an ingratiated player that they've done the amount of research it takes to know how to build and operate a CEDH deck, but you're also asking that they have spent like $10,000 to build it. Like, that is such a... You're asking to only have one pod to ever play with in your entire life.
Yeah, we showed up to a public table and this guy was like, "Hey, do you want to play like competitive game?" And we were like, "Yeah." And we're like, "What deck are you busting out?" And he's like, "Well, I'm playing Krenko." And he pulled it out and it was completely printed on black and white printer paper.
Yes, dude.
You know, and it's like, I don't care. Like, is it game pieces? Fine. Like, that's ultimately
I care.
what these are. I guess you do have to like.
I proxy all the time, but I make sure that my proxies are crisp. If you're playing on webcam with me, you don't even know if I'm playing with proxies.
Yeah. Okay. You can't have a piece or a scrap of notebook paper that's been ripped and like written on and shoved into a sleeve.
Yeah, I don't want to do additional research beyond, the cards in front of me. To understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly, for sure. And like, if it's just like, yo, I'm throwing this in real quick, I want to play this, I forgot this, whatever, that I don't care. But it's like, we had this one time, this kid was there with his dad, like one of the first nights on Commander Night. He used to clearly play it elsewhere, but
This is the kid I'm talking about.
word,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. But like, it was not even that it was like black and white. It was black and white. It was like 140p like res, dude. It was completely blurry. He cut them out with scissors, so they were like at a full angle, like cutting off parts of the art and stuff. So they were just completely illegible. It's just like, paper cutter on Amazon costs $10. Go into FedEx print shop, costs $5 to print off 3 pages, which is all it takes to put these proxies for 100 cards on it. And then you go get a pack of sleeves for $5 to $10.
Yeah, and you can put your bulk. You can put your bulk cards.
Cards that are not worth anything in it.
Yeah.
You could even go to like shops and ask for their draft bulk if you don't have it and you don't want to sacrifice cards for it, and they will give you stuff for it too. So it is so cheap to do it well that there's really no excuse not to do it well. And also, I think more people should be trying it out because it's so fun to just, like, a few of those decks I built, or some of the few of those decks I brought, like, I made a few of those lists and then I just grabbed a few of them. And then the fact that I just got to like grab some lists that somebody else has worked on hard on, and I just get to like put together in this kind of pod and like see how it plays together. It's so much fun, and it took 40 minutes.
Yeah, I pretty much learned how to create like a deck list today, like on Moxfield. And so if you export a list, you just go on to Moxfield. Like, you can look at any of our lists, you can look at other people's lists, and you can just go to the export feature and hit copy or whatever, and then just go into an Excel spreadsheet, or go into like, what is it, MPC Fill or Make Proxy.
No, NPC Fill is the one you have to buy. I mean, if you want to buy them, but there are free ones where you literally just copy and paste your deck list, and then it just gives you all the pictures. And on a sheet, you just click print, and that's it. That is it, start to finish.
Boom.
There's also a couple excellent subreddits on proxy that will give you, greater depth.
The research
on
is out there and easily available. And if you want to, like Chris did, and we started doing like buying the nicer ones, like we bought some dual lands for our CDH decks, and they're awesome. They're like, they are indeterminate. Like, you cannot tell that they are.
I love paying $5
It was
for
$5.
a foil borderless mana crypt, or with that is indistinguishable from the real thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, there is something to be said on the flip side of that. If you are going out and you are buying these, and because they are near indistinguishable, do not go out and try to sell or trade these.
Don't be an idiot.
Yeah,
Don't be an
I
asshole.
usually mark up the back and just to make sure I don't do it by accident.
Most proxy sites, if you're buying them, are good and will not do a legitimate back. There are a few of them, and we do have a few of them, where they print very realistic cards, including the backs, and that is problematic. So you need to be aware of that.
Yeah, and I mean, you might never know who you're sitting across from and you're trading with. Like, some people will be kind enough to like let you know, like, hey, that's a proxy, and then you have a good reason to ask, why is this even in your trade binder then? But it's like, just be careful about like trading. Know how to identify fake cards and stuff like that. People, like, there just are scumbags.
I mean, as a general rule, don't trade with strangers.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, Evan, there are scumbags in this game. Like, there are just low quality human beings who enjoy playing this game sometimes and just are out to take advantage of other people.
To be fair to people who play this game, there's a lot of low quality human beings in this world. So
Yeah,
it's
true.
Just some of them happen to also play Magic.
But I mean, there's you got your trade binder there ripe for being.
Yeah, and I have been kind of loosey goosey sometimes with my trade binder. I will say, Evan, I do have both of my duels in my trade binder right now. My dual proxies.
You are
just because I'm not trading them. It's because we're going to this tournament and it's a no proxy tournament.
Yeah.
Even though I could get away with it with these proxies, I'm not. I took them out and I put in 2 basics.
Yeah, that actually leads us right into the next segment of discussion, just like proxies, when they're acceptable and when they're not. So this weekend, we're actually going to a tournament where they are not acceptable. Even, let's say, like, I guess, even if you want to proxy a dual land, you can't. Like, even though it is a competitive scene and it is a tournament, it is somewhat restricted by your financial, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of the stuff I was talking about
finances.
with like that mentality of people that are anti-proxy. It's gatekeeping. It is how many people are actually able to go to this tournament, let alone how many people are actually able to show up to this tournament and compete in a meaningful way because their decks are tuned to the proper level.
Well, I mean, I think to play devil's advocate here, in the competitive scene for tournaments, you do need some sort of restrictions on proxies, whether that's them supplying you with their own proxies, which some tournaments will do.
Great point.
But also, you need some sort of gatekeeping to keep the correct amount of competition in the tournament. I would say you can't just have anyone with $20 printing up a CDH deck and being like, hey, I can play too, having not run any games and just making it a bad experience for other players that have put in the time. And you know, here I think in this context, like maybe owning the cards is a substitute for saying you're serious about this. You're here not to waste other people's time.
Right.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it does lend to the amount of effort and the amount of time I've put into like building this deck and like finding the resources to like build it like properly in the way I want it to be. So like, yeah, I've spent years collecting cards and I traded it all in for a Gaia's Cradle because I want to compete and I want to play in this deck.
Yeah, Evan and I have pretty much over the last year or two have gotten to the same point of pretty much upgrading our whole collection into the deck, the pet deck that has every card we could ever want in it, and then like I don't really care about anything else outside of it. Like I might pick up a few good like investment pieces if I see it just like, you know, a new set and it's coming out really cheap or something like that, or just a card I really like, which I think is how we should be kind of buying Magic cards. But I'm kind of just done buying Magic cards to like build decks. It's like way too expensive.
Yes.
I've changed my mind too many times. So like 10 cards I just bought, you know, half of them are out 2 weeks later because I'm always tweaking my decks.
I want to
Like,
build a lot of decks.
I want to build decks all the time, and like it's way too expensive. Or you're ripping apart the decks you just built to build the next one.
If you are not financially restricting yourself, how much do you think you would spend on a new deck? Like because it's very convenient for us because we have Card Kingdom right here in town in Seattle. So like it's very easy for us to like place an order, walk over, and they just bring it right down to you. It's pretty great, but it's also a dangerous addiction. How much do you think you would spend if you were like to build that Gearson Karn deck that you've been like that?
Just like not even like a high power deck, but like a
medium
deck. And that, mind you, was just split 50-50 on basic lands, mountains and islands. I'd probably say, I'd say 2 years ago, $200 or $300. Now, $400 or $500.
Yeah, I mean those, you know, $2, $3, $4 cards that you're building a 100-card deck
Guess
with.
what? 100.
They add up. Yeah, $100 $2 cards cost $200.
Yeah, like, and I challenge you to build like a meaningful deck for $200, and it can be done. And like mono white's getting amazing, and like, you know, there's strategies that will do it.
I have a mono white deck that's decent. That
It's great.
yeah, but it's still over. I don't know. I think it's $1,400.
Yeah.
Like that. And there's not any. I'm not even playing Smothering Tithe. I can't even think of the most expensive card in there. But that's still where it's hovering.
Shit adds up.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially like when you start tuning and like you tune your deck for a few months and look back and you're like, wow, that list got a lot more expensive than it was.
Right. The like if you guys wanted to check out our deck lists, like I'll post them in the description below. But like if you just go and check out my Zakama list, it's $7,000.
I defy anyone to go build a deck on Moxfield right now that they feel good about for less than $1,000.
Don't look at the bottom bar of the web browser.
I'm talking that
literally
you feel
ever.
good about. That you would be proud to sit down at a table with this, and even if you're not intending on like running the games,
And here's
Do it for under
your
1,000.
deck.
I dare you.
Yeah, 100%.
And here's the deal: you can go on TCG Player, you can price comparison all you want. The reason that I'm saying like Moxfield, they use Card Kingdom as a source. That is our most that is literally our LGS, and that's our most convenient.
Yeah,
source.
and you can
So
find
it's
better
like,
deals TCG and shit like that.
Yeah, but it's just like crazy when you go in and you're trying to like build a deck, and I can mask my finances a little bit and be like, hey, I built that Adelies deck. I built it for $60. You know,
Yeah,
and
see,
I
that's a great example of a deck that kind of pops off.
right, but it doesn't count all the cards I had previously purchased in my binder. I spent $60 for the
On top of all the staples you have.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, and then again, it speaks to ingratiated players getting to have a great time in this format while, people struggle to get into it because of how expensive it is now.
Yeah, new players, my heart goes out to you to like get addicted to this, and like we love the game, and I hope you love the game too, but to want to build decks is a dangerous game.
Hey, Wizards, do like a secret lair drop of mana bases, not like individual lands, mana bases, or improve the mana bases in your precons. Like that would go a long way towards making it
shocks in your
financially
precons.
viable for new players.
Yes.
Yeah, like we saw the like Unfinity reprints of Shocks. That is not a meaningful reprint. Like people can't get their hands on that reliably or like in a high volume.
Yeah, people aren't opening a ton of that.
And then they're like, well, the Challenger decks have one shock land in them. You could go buy them, and it's not enough. Meaningful reprints,
Except for
need to
the
happen.
expensive one on that. Like, what was there's one deck that didn't have it because it's the most expensive Shockland. I think it was like the one with the Watery Grave or whatever.
Yeah. I can't remember what it is, or maybe only had one of them in it, but every other deck had two. Because there was one deck that came out and had two Steam vents in it, and I was just like, oh damn, that's a good value.
Yeah. Regardless, they are clearly aware of this third party secondary market that they just don't want to like actually come out and say. I do love from this Magic 30 nonsense. I don't know if you saw this, Ritter, that at their like official table they had some of those Surge Foil Commander precons for the Warhammer thing. But they were all marked up like with Sharpies and stuff. At their official table, they were marked up from MSRP. Which is just a real feel bad, guys.
Yeah, I think we've seen a significant downturn in the game in general ever since the MSRP was abolished. I think that was the real turning point where I started to maybe weigh out using proxies more. Like even just taking like bulk cards, flipping them over and writing on them with a Sharpie. I've done that a lot. And I think that was like the turning point for me when I thought I was spending too much money on an Umezawa Jite because it was $10 is where I want to be in life and in Magic.
Right. Yeah, I think Wizards is like actively degrading the value of their own product right now, and that's why like even though I'm an avid collector, I'm putting a pause on everything. Like I'm pretty much like I'll collect reserve list because for the time being they're not reprinting reserve list cards. And that's kind of where my mind has been at anyway.
I mean, they're in the part of I don't know. I don't want to go too far with this, but they're in the part of the economic cycle with this game where they are just trying to move a high volume of low quality junk.
Yes.
Now is not the time to be spending real
Yes,
money.
and speak with your dollars that is not okay with you as a player, as a collector, and as a customer. And hopefully they listen to that. I mean, there's been tons of backlash over the last few months, so I do hope that they listen and realize that this is not really the direction that their player base wants this game to go.
And we're not saying don't go out and support your LGS. You guys should still
Please.
be going to your game stores.
Pre-releases
still be
are
hitting them
awesome.
up. Yeah, pre-release is like one of the most fun ways to play the game. So like that is still okay. We're not saying like don't go support them or anything.
Buy the
But
cards
also,
you want too.
Yeah, buy the cards you want, but also go support your local FedEx or UPS store. They have a printer. It works.
Yeah, don't break your bank to keep up. Like,
Yeah.
that's not the point of this. You should be having fun, and that's it.
Right. And I think there was like a certain point where like proxies do break the game in a way, right? So like I remember the day that one of the guys from my old pod showed up and he had proxied a Tabernacle of St.
Pendrell
Pendrell
Vale.
Vale.
You can't proxy to Pub Stomp. That's just rude.
That's a
I
point
mean,
I'm
that's
making,
fine.
yes.
Yeah.
Proxies. No, that is a very good point. Yeah, be responsible with those proxies.
Yeah, and I think I wasn't even like involved with that pod at the moment, but I started getting texts from them being like, "Can you believe this motherfucker? Like, can you believe this guy he printed out a tabernacle, showed up at the table, and thought it was okay."
But here's the thing: at the same time, anyone proxies a duel, I don't care.
Right,
Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
seriously, 100%.
Yeah.
Like even if your whole deck is like $10 and you show up with a proxied, dual land in there, I'm like, great.
Yeah,
Hell dude.
but if you show up with a proxy chains of Mephistopheles,
yeah,
you're kind of an asshole.
you're kind of a dick.
Yeah.
If you're playing competitively and that card strictly is reserved for a line of strategy that you are planning, like I would play it in Teom. I really want to play it in Teom because
It's a great card in Teom.
Absolutely.
But it's like if you are just doing it to punish other players because you felt like, I don't know, punishing other
Because now
players.
you can just
I have
because you
access to
can-
all of the best cards.
because you
Yeah.
can literally is the answer. I fully agree.
Yeah.
I think that you shouldn't be able to like proxy like that. You should be more. It's kind of like the power level conversation. I think it's just you sit down and you have this conversation. One, like if people aren't cool proxies, that kind of sucks from their perspective. But like I still be at least like, yo, I'm playing proxies. Just so you know, like
Yeah, it's definitely a rule zero discussion. And
Yeah, I mean, for
It
our
gets
play group,
ahead.
it's like I sat down with you guys and I was like, well, I don't want to spend the money on Ancient Tomb and Mana Crypt right
Yeah.
now.
And
Well,
we're
there's
also
other cards.
very-
So, but all you guys are playing those in your decks. So to keep up,
yeah,
I need those powerful cards.
yeah.
You're just jumping back into the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, how like you wouldn't want to play with us if like you were like, no, you can't, like absolutely not. Like we would never get you to come out. Like what would the fun of that be?
Yeah, I mean the other there's another guy in our pod who's basically playing with a slightly upgraded vampire precon, and after the last time we played, we were just like, hey man, just spend $5, get yourself an Edgar Markov. We're all rooting for you to do this. Like,
yes, he was talking about it
Yeah.
yesterday. Like it would like just build a disgusting deck and show up because like as long as you're setting the level and having this conversation, like it's great that we have a pod now. We don't really have to have this conversation all the time. But like once you set the level, then it's like, yeah, it's fine if you print off a Chains of Mephistopheles because you know that, the other deck has something just as terrible in it, and you've all agreed that this is just an awesome way to play the game, and we're playing at a high power level, and it kind of just lets everything neutralize again because now you're not fighting over money.
Yeah, and now if you are like preparing for tournament or something like that and you want a proxy to like test cards, that's also another like way that proxies are okay. Like if you are playing in a pod that is strictly like no proxies, just like hopefully they will lend an ear to you, and when you come to them and you say, hey, I'm just proxying this because I'm testing it out, I don't know if it's gonna make the deck or not, and I just don't want to spend the money on it, like it's on the way, or even if it's in the mail, it's like,
I mean, I'm not trying to make anyone uncomfortable, but like if you're in a pod that's against proxies, it's worth having that discussion. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why are you against this?
Yes.
Like, it's not like I'm creating new cards that aren't available to everyone with enough money. I'm just creating cards that are now available to me as a reasonable human being, not trying to lose my wallet to Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I feel like it's getting better. Maybe it's just because we've curated our playgroup more and we play a lot online and all that stuff is fine. Maybe there is still this whole like perspective out there.
Yeah, I'm sure among like boomer players and like rich kid players and stuff
just
like that, it's probably more contentious, where a bit of it is like, some of the fun of the game is how much you can bling this stuff out with.
Well, yeah,
you
Evan,
know?
I love that. Like that's what we're talking about. We're trading up our deck. Our decks are blinged out like to hell and back. But
these
like
are they're budgetless.
but we don't expect anybody to compete up with us. That are exclusively for the enjoyment of ourselves collecting and owning this deck that we can play as like kind of like our version of it.
on some level, when you see other people like spending the money, even though you're doing it yourself, you think that they're foolish, right? You're able to recognize it in
you're
other
like,
people.
bro, you
like,
spent how much on that shit? Like Evan bought a guy that's great. I'm like, you
Yeah.
fucking idiot.
yeah.
And then I turn around and I'm just like, no, I traded for it, dude. Like, it's one of those things where, if you're someone who's collecting the game, or you've been collecting the game for a long time, and you decide you want to invest in those pieces, like, I do not want anybody to go out and spend $1,000 hard-earned dollars on a Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah, none of us, I don't think any of us are saying don't do that. We're just saying don't do it if you don't have the money to burn.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
If your options are literally put money in a pile and set it on fire or spend it on magic cards, go ahead, spend the magic.
The great thing about proxies and the whole reason we're having this episode is you get to do both. You can put the $1,000 in your bank account and have yourself a Gaia's Cradle.
$995 in your bank account.
Yeah.
And a Gaia's Cradle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man.
and that is near indistinguishable. Still is like incredible card quality.
Does it
Maybe
still
even more
generate a
durable.
green mana for each creature you have in play?
I think it does.
Oh, wow. Okay. No, then definitely proxy it.
Effectively the same.
Yeah.
Insane. Real quick, like a little just crafty tip. If you're just using a paper cutter, it's the best way to cut out those proxies. And you just, like you said, just grab any kind of card behind it and you get the sleeve and you just line them all up. And then even if you kind of mess up the black a little bit, it's on the border so you can't even see it. And you just get, and also the FedEx print shop for super cheap. It has really crisp color prints. So
Yeah, you are meticulous.
I mean, I've proxied so many decks at this point that I think I just have a high enough standard for them. But it was great. Like I realized a few months ago that like one, we should be doing this more, even though we are proxying, we should be doing it more and getting kind of more decks in the play group. But I also had like 6 deck boxes just sitting around because I'm a psycho and there was no decks in them. So I just went and I spent a weekend and I went to the FedEx store and I printed off 6 decks and I just cut them all out, sleeved them up. And now all of a sudden our play group has 6 decks that like we can pass around. We can have drinks at the table and not really worry about it because it's not $10,000 sitting there. And we just all get to have a fun time and have like pass stuff around. Like, you know, like a lot of time when you're curating these deck stuff, people kind of get like schmeagly and this is like,
Don't touch my cards.
Don't touch my cards, you know, like don't Praetor's Graphs, don't grab my deck.
Yeah.
But, you know, who cares? It's a $5 deck.
Yeah.
Do you want to have a good time? Do you want to not worry about things for a couple hours? Proxy a deck.
Proxy a deck and
truly
play-
worry about nothing.
Magic the Gathering. Isn't that why we play this?
Yeah.
They're all game pieces. I think that is like going to be my biggest point from this whole discussion. They're game pieces, and you want to be able to play the game. And Chris was saying, it's like you want it to at some point be a game of skill and a game instead of being like a game of money and luck. So like that's how you curate a pod where like this is skill based. Like it is you have every opportunity to create the deck that you want and do the things that you want to do and create something that does what you want it to do. It's like, I don't want to spend the money to like have to rebuild Marith. I built it like a dinosaur deck with Marith way back in the day. And at some point I had to take it apart and I just don't get to play that deck anymore because I sold it for bigger pieces or whatever. And I just want to like relive the glory day of that. Like there are some people who will play on like, if you're playing webcam online, they'll just open up Moxfield and they'll kind of have their like they're just like streaming their screen.
Yeah, OBS Studio. It's what like streamers use. They
Yeah.
just screen cap the Moxfield tester.
And I'm just letting you guys know right now, that person is still playing the same game I am, and they have spent $0
Yeah.
on doing it. They just put their mind to work, and they found a way to make it work for them. That it wasn't spending $300, it wasn't spending $400, like on the secondary market to get the cards that you needed to like to just play the game.
Yeah, I think too, the other aspect of that is that using proxies is going to make you a better player. And here's why it's going to make you a better player is because you're not going to get salty because that card that you spent hundreds of dollars on just didn't win you the game. Like, it feels bad to play a card or an expensive deck and it just doesn't work out. And you're playing it wrong because you're getting salty because you're like, I spent all this money. These things should be working, like automatically working. So if you're just using proxies, you can play the cards with the text on the cards and make decisions based on that.
Right.
Instead, it's going to make you a better player because you're playing the cards.
Yeah, additionally on that thought is not only that, but like with us playing all these different decks, like I don't play a ton of things outside of Grixis, especially in the competitive sense. But now that I'm doing that, I'm playing like 5-color, 4-color, a lot of green, white, red kind of stuff, and just seeing all these different strategies. And so those strategies also demand a different play style from me to play effectively. And that's been really interesting is because learning how many different play styles there can be, and been seeing the same or 2 different people play the same deck. Everything plays out differently. It's very interesting to me.
I mean, you're relatively recent to the game, like at the span of the people talking right now, and so your direction as a player has been determined largely by the first deck you played, and the card pool you've generated since then.
Pretty much,
not necessarily determined by the full range of options available to you. There might be a playstyle more suited towards you rather than Grixis bullshit.
Right.
Or,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like, and how are you supposed to know if you can't afford to ever try anything other than the one deck you managed to purchase 2 years ago? Like, how is that fun for you?
Yeah, I think when I tell people about Magic and I'm like, yeah, there's like 20,000 unique game pieces, I guess that thought and doesn't trigger in the back of my head where I'm just like, I don't have access to all those game pieces if I'm to go out and buy them, or like I played Naya pretty much my whole career, like, and now I'm just looking at like expanding it out.
You've played 5 or 10% of the available pieces.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I'm really excited to like when I built at Adelies, I'm like, even though it's like I built the deck and I'm just excited to try something that's different and new, and I think that's what Proxies gives you the opportunity to do.
100%. Completely agree. Pronounce the proxies, guys. I'll end us on this little question. What is the next deck you want to proxy at our table? I'm thinking Prosper.
Prosper. You love Prosper.
I love Prosper. And it is kind of like what you're talking about, is just going back and like these decks that we had to take apart because we're building something else. I used to have a Prosper deck and it slapped, but I traded it and sold it back, bought Mox Diamond or some shit. I don't know. But like, how great would it be to like go back, get that deck, maybe even fine tune it a little more, put a little more gas in it.
Well, you're just talking about Doomsday Prosper today.
Doomsday Prosper, like I've never even played a Doomsday deck, Like I play a lot of add-ons and stuff, but no Doomsday. How fun would it be just boom, Doomsday Prosper in the rotation, grab it whenever you want.
Yep, and anyone at the table can grab it and play it, and you can now see how people are going to play it differently than you to become a better player, to learn more about how these decks work and operate.
Yeah, 100%. I love seeing people play decks that I've played before and just being like, wow, I just would not have done it that way. I was just watching a video of like someone playing my deck, like Malcolm Vial Smasher, and like he cast Vial Smasher twice in that game, and I was like, I haven't cast Vial Smasher this entire time I've played this deck.
Yeah, I mean, when you play, you're limited to the lines of play that you're aware of, right? Mm-hmm. So it gives you an opportunity to see other people. It makes you more aware of different things that you can pursue.
Yeah, legit. Like I know I got a little off a tangent, but I just definitely agree with you. It makes you a better player. Just you see so much more of the game, so many more strategies, new lines of play. I think it's just fantastic, and you can do it for freaking $5 at the FedEx print shop.
Yeah. I guess the deck that I would rebuild is Marith, Will of the Wild. Like I'd said it before, but like I don't play Infinite Loops. I know Marith is like one of those cards like Gave where it's just like you trip and you fall into a combo. But I was playing a dinosaur variant of it, which was just super interesting. And I just basically played Marith for value. Like I would use it to like snipe creatures off the board when I had to. And Jordan hated it. It was such a fun deck.
It was a sick deck.
But, it's like I loved the interaction with ranging raptors. It's like remove a counter from Marith, ping the raptor, go get a land, and then the next turn that comes around to you or whatever, you just cast Marith for 5 and then 7 and then 9. And then, it's just like you're pulling every land out of the library.
Marith's so annoying.
It was really fun. It was really good. And then like Polyraptor was a big fun piece. I'm just not willing to go out and spend the $20 I need for a non-foil Polyraptor.
Legit, like you're not even getting like a staple or anything that you're going to transfer to every other deck in the future. Like
if you have these guys' version of Insanity, where you need the most blinged out version of any card.
Yes, literally. Like, does that come in borderless foil? Cool card. Does that come in
when
alt
are they
art?
reprinting that?
Box topper foil?
Is that a secret lair yet?
Retro border foil?
Yeah. That's the deck that I would want to build. It was just the most fun to me. It was one of my first commander decks ever. And like I said, I'm all about nostalgia in a way. Like, and I know it's just like leaning more into the Naya flavor that I so proudly represent. But it just reminds me of a time when Magic was still very simple or fun to me in a very straightforward way. I didn't have to worry too much about spending too much money or whatever.
Well, for me, it's like the things that are great about Magic are free. The
yes.
The atmosphere at the LGS is free. The play your pod, hanging out with your pod, that's free. The competitive aspect is free. All of the things that you like about the game are free. The only thing Wizards of the Coast has control over is the supply of cardboard. And that's the expensive part. So if you cut that out, you can get 99.9% of what you like about this game for absolutely free.
Mm-hmm.
Spend some money on proxies. Keep Hasbro, keep Wizards of the Coast out of it, and you're getting a much better bargain, and you're making a much more productive use of your time. Honestly.
Yeah, big agree. And like to that, it's you get to, if you want to invest, if you want to buy Magic cards, then you get to truly buy the ones you want. You get to truly make the investments you think are worthwhile and not just, like I said, keeping up.
I mean, yeah, you can spend money wisely in this game. You can treat it as an investment. But proxying allows you to divorce that from the gameplay
right.
aspect.
And for me, for a long time, it was not. It was very much, very much connected. What about you, Chris? Any proxy decks you want to see coming up at the table? I need some ideas.
Ooh, no. I want to build the decks I want to build, and the way I proxy is I'll proxy the expensive pieces that I'm looking to buy eventually. You know, so I don't have decks that are built around the idea of having access to these things because of proxies, but there's so many things in decks where I'm building a better deck because I'm allowing myself to not have this mental restriction against playing proxies.
Totally. That's another way of doing it too. And like, not just how I've been printing off 100 straight cards and stuff. Like, you could have a deck and you could decide to upgrade it. You know, you bought a budget deck to start and you loved it, and like, great, now we just take out some cards and
buy a precon.
100%.
Print some proxies.
Yes. Yeah. You
Still
could put all
supporting your LGS.
Yeah. Put a Mox Diamond in a Shorokai precon and you're, off to the races.
Yep. You know, please, if you're going to play Shorokai, like, proxy that humility that you need for the deck.
Yeah, you're right. Like, you're like, hey, humility plus Shorokai is pretty cool, and then everybody else realized at the same time and bought the humility before you. Print it off.
Shorokai is a sick deck, but you absolutely need to proxy it.
You need to have the humility, and you probably should proxy. Also, Tabernacle Pendreville, great in that deck, by the way. I just wanted to point that out.
Good in any deck.
Good in any deck that doesn't have a ton of creatures at the very least.
Yeah, it's Shorokai is such a fun deck to like see work and see operate, and then also not that fun to play against. I guess like they drop humility, and you're just like, So I think I'm pretty much out of the game. But
at least if you're playing competitively, you lose fast.
Yeah, and you accept it
usually.
Yeah, you usually accept it once it happens.
All right, guys, that was our topic on frickin' proxies. I think you all know where we stand on at this point. Everybody go out, print yourself a proxy deck, bring it to the table, spice up your frickin' Magic Night.
But before you do that, have a healthy discussion with your pod.
True. Also, it's a great way to get your pod into it. Maybe you wanted to see how everybody's feeling about playing a little more competitively. Print off 4 decks and show up and be like, hey, can we try out a game using these instead? And just kind of get the vibe.
Yeah, if you put in the work to like create a curated pod where all the decks are gonna like mesh well with each other, interact well with each other, and you can see some really cool interactions with some like lesser known cards, like I would be down for that.
Yeah, who wouldn't be down for that?
Yeah, you don't need to spend money to have fun.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay?
Right.
Don't make yourself hate this game because you think there's a financial barrier to you having enjoyment from it.
True. There is so much.
I'm starting to love the game more.
Yeah, actually, 100%. Like, there's so much good parts about this game, and like, we shit on Wizards a lot, but shout out to like the Wizards team that are cranking out set after set of like high quality, like pretty great mechanics. With,
Brothers War looks super fun,
dude. Like Streets of Catan. Like, I don't know how they kept up. Like, they must be dying over there right now.
Yeah, fun cards like Meticulous Excavation don't get printed every day.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, I think they're doing a great job, and you can actually kind of sit back and enjoy like sets as they come out, or like maybe not pay attention to every set as it comes out because you're just kind of doing your own thing, and you like enjoy Magic at your own pace and not at the pace that Wizards is forcing us and force feeding it.
Yeah, you missed the window on getting a dockside, which is a must include for cheap, and now you feel left out.
Yeah, print one off, move on. Like, enjoy the game. Like, let's not just be so stressed about it anymore.
Yeah, I own 2. That's enough.
Yeah,
I own 2 docksides.
He just wanted to.
Are they borderless foil alternate art?
Oh no, they're not. I think that
Evan, are you even playing the game?
I think that artwork is ugly. I know you have one, Jordan, but like I hate that artwork.
It doesn't matter if I don't like it.
It's
the most expensive version.
It's the most expensive.
So it's the best version. Yeah.
It's in my deck.
We have a problem.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. This is the MoxStars podcast. Episodes out every freaking Friday. Appreciate y'all. And socials linked down below.
We love you.
We love you.
Goodbye.
Take care, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.